music was like the soundtrack to your life. But there's no one for whom that's more true than Mayte Garcia. She was his wife, his muse, his best friend.
At 51, Mayte Garcia isn't just looking back, she's telling the truth. For decades, the world saw her as the lucky girl who captured Prince's heart, living in a fairy tale of music, luxury, and romance. But behind the glittering facade was a love story that slowly cracked under unimaginable pressure. Today, she's finally ready to reveal why she walked away from the man everyone thought was untouchable and the devastating secrets that destroyed their marriage from the inside out. Picture this. A 9-year-old girl boldly announces to her mother that she'll marry either Luis Miguel or Prince. Her mother laughs it off as childhood fantasy. But that little girl wasn't dreaming. She was predicting her destiny, because that same child would grow up to become Prince's wife, only to discover that fairy tales can become nightmares when real life crashes in. What really happened between Prince and Mayte? And why did their love story, which seemed written in the stars, end in such devastating heartbreak? Stay with us, because this is where one of music's greatest love stories completely unravels. Before we understand how it all fell apart, we need to know how Prince became the icon who could make a young girl's impossible dream come true. Prince Rogers Nelson wasn't just born, he was unleashed onto a world that had never seen anything like him. From the moment he stepped on stage in his high-heeled boots and ruffled shirts, everyone knew this wasn't some ordinary kid from Minneapolis. He was destined to shake music to its very core. But behind the sparkle and genius was a childhood filled with pain. When Prince was 10, his parents divorced, and his mother quickly remarried. The relationship with his stepfather was rocky, and Prince spent years bouncing between homes, never really belonging anywhere. To make things worse, he struggled with epileptic seizures that other kids cruelly teased him about. Later, he admitted that the only way to cover that pain was to make himself flashy and loud. And oh, did he succeed. By 16, Prince had dropped out of school to chase his musical dreams. He lived and breathed music, burying himself in basement studios and studying legends like James Brown and Aretha Franklin like they were scripture. Soon, he wasn't just copying, he was creating something the world had never heard. By 18, he was a session guitarist. By 19, he had a Warner Records deal. And by the 1980s, Prince didn't just rise to fame, he absolutely skyrocketed. Then came Purple Rain, the album that owned the Billboard charts for 24 straight weeks and sold 25 million copies worldwide. Overnight, Prince became more than a musician. He was an icon. But success came with a price that few people saw. Behind the scenes, Prince ran his world like a military operation. Those who worked with him described it as a tour of duty. His engineer, Susan Rogers, revealed that life with Prince meant sleepless nights, endless studio calls, and zero negotiation. If Prince wanted you there, you showed up. Carmen Electra, who briefly dated him, discovered he barely slept, often waking up to find him deep in his home studio at all hours of the night. Prince's romantic life was just as intense as his music. Over the years, his name became linked to some of the most famous women in Hollywood: Madonna, Sheila E., Carmen Electra, Kim Basinger. Each relationship was passionate, complicated, and unforgettable. But none of them prepared him for what would happen when a teenage dancer's videotape landed in his hands. The moment that changed everything happened at a Prince concert in the early 1990s. Mayte's determined mother had packed a videotape of her 16-year-old daughter dancing and somehow got it to the right person backstage. Minutes later, that person returned with a message that would alter Mayte's life forever. Prince would like to meet you. He saw your tape. When Mayte walked into that room, Prince looked at her and said he liked her performance. Then, almost suspicious, he asked if she was really 16. When she confirmed it, he asked for her number. The whole exchange lasted less than a minute, but to Mayte, it felt timeless, like she'd been pulled out of her ordinary life and into his extraordinary world. That night, Prince invited her to his hotel room, not for anything scandalous, but to watch more of her dance tapes. He was 32, she was 16, and what unfolded wasn't romance. It was the beginning of something far more complicated. They started writing letters and spending hours on the phone. In her memoir, Mayte admits there was no romantic relationship at that time. Prince, despite any thoughts he might have had, drew a firm line and refused to take advantage of a teenage girl. But once Mayte graduated high school, everything changed. Prince offered her a spot as one of his backup dancers and eventually became her legal guardian. At 18, she moved into Paisley Park, living in the heart of his musical empire. Even though Prince dated other women during this time, it was Mayte who stayed in his room until dawn, talking, laughing, and developing a closeness that blurred every line between friendship and something deeper. By 19, those lines disappeared completely. Prince looked at her one day and said simply, "I think it's time." Thrilled, nervous, and ready, Mayte marked the moment in her journal with bold letters, February 9th, 1993, not a virgin. Next to it, she drew a winking, smiley face and added three words that would prove prophetic: patience pays off. That patience carried her all the way to February 14th, 1996, Valentine's Day, the day she became Mrs. Prince Nelson. She was just 22 years old, standing beside one of the most famous men in the world. To seal their union, Prince handed her the keys to a 7,500 square foot mansion in Spain, complete with its own recording studio and professional hair salon. To everyone watching, it looked like the perfect fairy tale. But fairy tales rarely survive in the real world, and theirs was about to be tested in the most heartbreaking way possible. Those early married days were intoxicating. They lived fast, loved fast, and spent money like it was going out of style. Together, they'd storm Melrose Avenue in a limousine, grabbing clothes off racks without even glancing at price tags. Prince called it shopping guerrilla style, and to Mayte, it felt like living inside a movie. After all, he was Prince. The world bent to his presence, and she was swept along for the ride. But Prince wasn't just about material luxury. He genuinely believed that he and Mayte had known each other in a past life. He told Oprah in 1996 that their bond felt ancient, like she was his sister or even part of him in another existence. He spoke with complete certainty about their connection being written in the stars, their souls having met in ancient Egypt, their destiny sealed by fate itself. To outsiders, it sounded strange. To Prince, it was undeniable truth. He wasn't just in love. He was convinced their story had been thousands of years in the making. He poured this passion into his music. The Most Beautiful Girl in the World wasn't just a song. It was a love letter, his way of immortalizing Mayte in melody. The world listened, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. But real life doesn't follow the rhythm of love songs. Just 2 months into their marriage, Mayte discovered she was pregnant. What should have been the happiest news came with an edge of fear. Doctors warned of potential complications and urged medical precautions. But Prince, ever resistant to outside interference, refused. He believed faith would be enough. In October 1996, their son Amir was born, but joy quickly turned to absolute heartbreak. The baby suffered from Pfeiffer syndrome type 2, a rare genetic condition that caused severe deformities. After 6 agonizing days and multiple desperate attempts to save him, little Amir died. The loss was beyond words. Mayte later admitted she never got over it, and she believed Prince never did either. The man who had spent his life making the world dance and smile was suddenly hollowed out by grief. Still, he tried to hide it from the public. Just weeks after their baby's death, he and Mayte sat down with Oprah, putting on brave faces while their hearts were shattered. Prince dodged questions about their loss, insisting their family still existed and they'd have more children. But behind that public mask, their marriage was quietly unraveling. When Mayte became pregnant again, hope flickered briefly, only to be crushed by a devastating miscarriage. The back-to-back losses left scars that no amount of money, music, or past life stories could heal. Mayte later revealed she believed these tragedies drove them apart. Prince seemed to carry the pain like a silent judgment, as if their inability to have children together meant their cosmic connection wasn't meant to last after all. Then came another wedge between them: Prince's dramatic religious transformation. He became a devout Jehovah's Witness, and while Mayte tried to be supportive, she couldn't walk that spiritual path with him. She saw his newfound devotion as part of his desperate search for answers after losing their child, a way of clinging to something bigger than himself. But instead of bringing them closer together, it only pulled them further apart. The end came suddenly and publicly. In 1998, Prince stunned Mayte and the world by announcing at a press conference that he planned to annul their marriage. She was completely blindsided and devastated. She had believed in the eternal bond he'd spoken about so passionately, the kind of love that was supposed to span lifetimes. Instead, she was left behind with nothing but memories and songs that the world still celebrates. But that cut her deeper than anyone could imagine. Life after Prince proved nearly impossible for Mayte. How do you date other musicians when your ex-husband is Prince, when he's written some of the most beautiful love songs of all time about you? She admitted that no one else could measure up. Every poem, every melody from another man felt hollow compared to what she'd already lived. She was briefly engaged to Tommy Lee, but nothing could fill the void Prince had left behind. Meanwhile, Prince's own struggles were deepening in ways the world couldn't see. Behind the purple lights and sold-out tours, his body was breaking down from years of injuries and chronic pain. What had started with a stage accident during the Purple Rain tour, when a suspended bathtub snapped and he plummeted to the ground, had spiraled into a secret battle with prescription painkillers. For years, Prince had prided himself on being drug-free, calling substances a weakness that dulled creativity. He was the odd one out in an industry drowning in excess, the straight-edge genius who preferred vanilla cake to cocaine. But constant pain has a way of breaking even the strongest principles. By the 2000s, his addiction to painkillers was tightening its grip, even as he continued performing and recording with the same intensity he'd always had. Then came April 21st, 2016, the day that shattered Mayte all over again. Prince was found dead at Paisley Park, killed by an accidental fentanyl overdose at just 57 years old. For the woman who had already buried their child, now she was burying the man who had been everything to her. She told the world she had loved him then, loved him still, and would love him eternally. In her mind, he was finally reunited with their son Amir. The love story of Prince and Mayte Garcia wasn't the fairy tale that fans imagine. It was passion and heartbreak, music and silence, cosmic destiny and devastating loss all tangled together. For a brief shining moment, they seemed bound by something bigger than themselves. Two souls who had supposedly found each other across lifetimes. But in the end, even love written in the stars can collapse under the weight of unimaginable tragedy. Today, as Mayte reflects on their time together, she sees both the magic and the pain clearly. Their story proves that even the most extraordinary love can't survive every test that life throws at it. And sometimes the most beautiful fairy tales are also the most heartbreaking, because they show us just how human even our most untouchable icons really are.